Hello again. I thought a few words about the news from Israel might not come amiss. A couple of people asked me what my views were on the recent developments in Israel and Gaza. First, a little background. When Britain was granted a mandate from the League of Nations to administer the newly created territory of Palestine after the end of the Great War, it was a very big area with plenty of room for both Arabs and Jews to live together. No shortage of room, everyone could have got in there perfectly happily. You can see what this part of the world looked like in the thumbnail to this video. That is Palestine, although it doesn't look like the shape that most of us recognise as Israel or Palestine, which is a little bit narrower and more like a dagger. That's because, of course, the British chopped off 80% of Mandate Palestine that they were supposed to be looking after and gave it to a Bedouin guy to whom they owed a favour, who was a chum of Lawrence of Arabia, a fellow called Abdullah. This area is now Jordan. It's just as much a part of Palestine as Israel is sometimes claimed to be. In 1948, Abdullah stole as much of the remaining land of Palestine as he could manage and added it to his kingdom. This was quite illegal, and only the British accepted that he had any right to do so. This is the area that was known as Judea and Samaria. It's sometimes called the West Bank in European and American newspapers and television reports. Abdullah also annexed half of Jerusalem at the same time. He was a very busy bee. He was just trying to steal as much land as he could lay his hands on. Nobody, other of course than the Palestinians, really cared about this, and nobody ever talked to the occupied West Bank or anything like that. As long as the Jordanians held it, everyone was really content. They weren't bothered about it. The rules changed only when the Jews took hold of it, but we'll come to that in a minute. The Palestinians never forgave Abdullah, and in 1951 he was assassinated by a Palestinian in the Al-Aqsa Mosque. While they held part of Jerusalem, the Jordanians gave land and houses which had been bought and owned by Jews who had been driven out of East Jerusalem to Palestinian families. These included houses in a district known as Sheikh Jarrah. In 1967, the Jordanians themselves were driven out of Jerusalem, of course, where they had no right to be anyway, and a lot of legal complications resulted because, of course, there was the Ottoman law, which had existed when a lot of that land changed hands, complicated by British law, and then Jordanian law. The whole thing was an absolute nightmare, and it's still going on, the disputes over property. The latest of these arguments in court is via the people whose organisation legally bought the land in Sheikh Jarrah in 1890, and they're going through the courts to try and get it back, or at least get some rent for the properties, because originally the houses there were built by Jews and they were seized by the Jordanians and given to Palestinians, and the people who have actual legal ownership of the houses think it would be only fair if they were given some rent for them. So that's all forcing its way through the courts at the moment. It's going to be an absolute nightmare to resolve because, as I say, there are at least 4 different legal systems, international systems involved here. Because of all this, there has been ill feeling in some quarters, resulting in violence in the old city of Jerusalem, the walled part. This included Israeli police breaking down the door of Al-Aqsa and entering the mosque. This is unfortunate. I've prayed in the Al-Aqsa and it's a lovely place. However, there has been violence there before. It's not just the Israelis that are prone to doing violent things in Al-Aqsa. On one of the pillars inside there in the mosque, I've actually seen where bits have been chipped out of it, and this is where the bullets that killed the old king, Abdullah, ended up. They went straight through him and hit one of the columns. Following some more disorder, Hamas, an Islamist organisation, started firing rockets at Jerusalem. The Israelis took out the firing bases in Gaza, and Hamas fired more rockets, which killed 2 people in Ashkelon. I dare say that some of you who are familiar with the Bible will recognise the name of Ashkelon, which was a Philistine city. After Saul and his son had been killed by the Philistines, they nailed his body to the walls of Bet Shan, which was one of their cities. And of course there was a lament for Saul, which began, "Tell it not in Gath, publish it not in the streets of Ashkelon, lest the daughters of the Philistines rejoice." Anyway, moving away from scripture, once 2 Jews had been killed in this way, as they were in Ashkelon by the rockets, I'm afraid that everything changed instantly. There was a time long ago when people could kill Jews whenever they felt like it, and nothing much would happen. We massacred them in England during the Crusades. The Spanish Inquisition killed them, and of course in Russia they invented the pogrom as a way of killing lots of Jews as quickly as possible. Some people might be familiar with Khmelnytsky and the Cossack massacres. These were great times for homicidal anti-Semites, of course. At a loose end, hey, why not go out and kill a few Jews? Still, all good things come to an end, and with the establishment of the State of Israel, the calculus changed dramatically for those wishing to massacre Jews or start pogroms. These days, if you want to kill Jews, you have to pay for your pleasures, I'm afraid. The general price is about 50 or 100 lives for every Jew you want to kill. This is the exchange rate that we are now seeing operating when we watch the television news or read the newspapers. It certainly discourages people from holding pogroms and so on. If you do stuff like that abroad, then the Mossad will come looking for you. Do it in Israel or Gaza, on the other hand, and you'll have the Israeli Defence Forces, or, which is worse, the Sherut Bitachon after you. Trust me, you don't want either of those on your back. There's nothing worse than waking up one morning to find Shin Bet kicking the door down. I've seen them in action. It's not a pretty sight. There is a simple solution to all this, and it begins with not discharging guns at Jews or firing rockets at their homes. You'll surely live to regret it.